Yes. Welcome back to the Football Terrace. It's a special evening tonight. We're joined by the stars of one of the biggest up-and-coming YouTube I'll say stars. I'll big it up. The boys from the Beautiful Game podcast. These men have had Rio Ferdinand, Brendan Rodgers, and Fabrizio on inside their first 3 or 4 months, making the rest of us. Gents, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Yeah, we're doing great, bro. Very good.
Thanks for having us, man.
Right, man. It's nice to have 3 guests on with good Wi-Fi equipment. There's no crackling in my ears. Some people come on and I'm like, bro, your modem is a potato. Like, what is your internet, bro?
Yeah, we've been doing this for a while. We've been doing it for a while, so everyone's made sure that their Wi-Fi is in connection. So yeah,
I'm just hoping, boy, because sometimes my Wi-Fi can act funny.
yeah. Don't speak too soon.
I've said this to a lot of people that start up in YouTube. Visuals are important. The better your camera, the better. However, sound. If the sound's interrupted, that's when people turn off because they just want to be able to. After people watch, they have it on the background playing FIFA or doing whatever they do, and it's just about the sound being clear. So now that's all good, boys. And how often? First of all, introduce yourselves one by one. We'll start at the top, go around, let everyone know who you are, and then I'd love to talk a little bit in the opening about your podcast and where people can find you.
Yeah, 100%, man. I'll kick things off. So I'm Budge. Budge the Gooner is my handle on Twitter. Of course, the host of the Beautiful Game podcast that we have been now running for about 18 months with my 2 co-conspirators, I always like to say, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Yeah, my name's Dej from the Beautiful Game podcast. You can catch us on the Beautiful Game podcast on YouTube, at podcast_TBG on Twitter, and at pod_TBG on Instagram. And if you want to follow my personal, it's at Dej_TBG.
I'm Dot at LFC Nino on Twitter. And obviously the YouTube channel is the Beautiful Game Podcast. We're also on Spotify and Apple, the Beautiful Game Podcast. And our Twitter is at podcast_TBG. And the Instagram is at pod_TBG. And do me a favor, after this, go onto the YouTube channel and subscribe.
and leave a like.
Yeah, make sure you always do it on the show as well right now. Smash the goddamn like button. Do you know what annoys me? So many people go, I love your show. You hit the like button. No, I forgot, bruv. It's the most important thing. You know what I mean?
Do you know what, Terry? The other day, I was watching one of the shows the other day, right? And it was cracking me up that at the start of it, you were like, "I'm not going to carry on until we see the lights go up." I'm just waiting. Come on. I was like, "Yeah, top work."
People forget to do it. People just forget to do it, and I think, do you know, it's like with people like ourselves, you've got so many corporate. It's funny. Someone said to me the other day, "Oh, I think I've got a guy doing social media for me now, and he's a good dude." And he's like, "Oh, I've seen that the Football Daily are taking Sky Sports videos and putting their logo on it and like pushing them out." I goes, "Do you think I should do the same for you?" I was like, "Bro, Sky Sports own Football Daily. They're not a real YouTuber channel. They are owned by they're corporate backed, and there's so much of that now. There's another one that came out last year, and their first ever video was like a live auditorium with like Gary Neville and Roy Keane, and it went viral. And I'm like, you people think these are startup YouTubers, bro? Like, I was doing stuff in my car. I was hiding in the corner of my house, shouting at me for making too much noise. That's a real YouTuber. A lot of these people nowadays, it's like corporate back, and you're like, how did you do this? How did you do that inside a week? It's your first video, and you got Roy Keane on there. Yeah, of course you didn't have any backing. Sponsored by Cadbury's. What are you talking about, bro? Madness. But no, I appreciate you guys being on. It's great to have you here. Obviously, we've got Budge Gooner on here. I want to talk to Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang to start with. A lot of the viewers want to hear about that as well. From my point of view, I feel like, I want to ask you, do you feel like happy that he's close to signing a new deal? Or do you feel a little disrespected that he's been waiting for a date with Barcelona, but they just haven't asked him out yet?
Do you know what? So, as with so many things, right, you can look at it from 2 different perspectives. So both as a fan and, of course, as just a normal person, right? So, of course, as a fan, you're just sitting on the edge of your seat and you're wanting the deal to get done, and you're wanting him to put pen to paper and just getting that chapter closed so you can move on to other targets and whatnot. But thinking it and looking at it from the perspective of just a normal person, right? You naturally, like any of us in our given fields, would always look to get the best possible deal, the best possible money, the best opportunity to win trophies, right? And of course, like there's no secrets there. He's been holding out to see if there are any other bids that come in from any of the other top clubs like Barcelona. Although with their current circumstances, I'm not entirely sure anyone is going to go there anytime soon. Yeah. I can completely understand his stance and why he's delayed things a little bit. I think I've also been put at ease a little bit just with the way that things are being done at the moment and the way things are being handled, because he's still very much in the whole cold ethos of the club. He's still going on to Instagram lives with troops. He's still wearing the Arsenal kit on holiday. So signs are pointing towards him staying on. And I think that's probably what's keeping us at ease a bit more as Arsenal fans, to be fair.
Yeah. It's certainly good PR in this because he leaves. He hasn't got to face he'll just block troops. They won't do that. But, you know what I mean? if he stayed, when I was never really seriously looking, we were just waiting for the best time. I told you guys I loved it. I always remember most players do it. Like Anthony Martial did it at United when he was sending his agent across Europe to find him a new club. Whenever he was questioned, he was just like, I'm here now. I love the fans. The fans are so great to me.
Yeah.
Fans, he loves us. He loves me. He knows me. Like the difference between what Aubameyang and Martial and David De Gea did, there's no difference between that and what Wayne Rooney did at Man United. But Rooney was just honest about it. And this is what I always say about football fans. We always say, I want players just to be honest. I want managers in interviews just to be honest. No, you don't. Because when they say what they really think, if it offends you, we all know society, everyone's weak. It's like, oh, that hurt my feelings. Oh, my God. He said, I'm not a real fan. Oh, no. No one wants the truth. What they want to hear, they want to hear what they want to hear. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Very true.
How about yourselves? We've got Dej first. I mean, Aubameyang stand at Arsenal. Do you think if that doesn't happen, Arsenal will struggle next year because replacing his goals will be nigh on impossible with the budget they've got?
Of course. I mean, he scored, 60-70% of their goals. He's their talisman. In the semi-finals and the finals of the FA Cup, he was very decisive. And we even spoke to Joe Willock on our platform, the Beautiful Game podcast, and he told us that this is a man that needs to stay at the club. Not only is he a good player, he's very, very good with the youth. He cajoles them. I even remember after the final, there was Saka holding on his iPad a goal, saying, this is our man. And I think when you think about it, it goes more than performances. It's what are you adding to the dressing room? And he adds tons with his personality. As Budge alluded to, like he gets the whole North London, the kit, the trendiness. He understands the club and he's got an affinity with Arsenal Football Club. So I think it's very, very key for Arsenal to keep him because, the hardest thing to find in football is a natural goal scorer. And he scores goals.
No, that's definitely, and he definitely gets like the London culture. Like I listen to him speak, and it's like, he gets a slang. Do you know what I mean? I like stuff, man. I do like. I think he gets it as well. He isn't just sort of repeating words, and I think he makes him laugh and sort of stuff. How about yourself, Dot? I mean, we have had some gooners on here that have said they wanted Arsenal to cash in on him and then use the money to reinvest in the squad. Calling out you, Igal. I'm calling you out, bro. Wanted him gone. They'd get rid of him, as if he weren't that good. What do you make of the Aubameyang situation? Do you think he'll stay? Do you think he'll go? Where's your head at?
It's funny that you say that because I think you only appreciate people when they leave. And I think when Aubameyang leaves Arsenal, that's when the fan base will say, wow, like, oh my days, like we miss him. In terms of the contract situation, from what I've been told, I believe that, they're putting the final details together and he's going to sign a contract. And just to go back to our interview on the Beautiful Game podcast with Joe Willock, he was saying what Arteta is building there, the culture, players are buying into it. Players are running through brick walls. There's non-negotiables. I think Aubameyang is a key part in that setup. And I don't see him leaving Arsenal this summer because I don't see any suitors paying the money to get him out.
Yeah, I mean, Barca's a weird one as well. I don't really think it's a sensible place for anybody to join right now. Like it's so toxic. It's unbelievable. I mean, you've got they're protesting, like the way they're protesting for Messi. Like, we've seen some really serious and required protests around the world in recent times. Seeing people protest over a football player leaving, it's actually a little bit pathetic, but it shows like how bad it's got. The people are willing to embarrass them and their family. Like, and you know, some of these blokes that are there, their mum ain't going to speak to them. Come Sunday, she ain't letting them in. Like, it's like, what are you doing? Embarrassing. But yeah, not a great place to sort of be at the moment. There's no doubt about that. Liverpool. So we've got two Scousers on here, and obviously I've not really
London Scousers. We haven't got the accents, you know.
London Scousers.
Scousers, mate. Liverpool fans, Scousers, you know, rats, whatever we want to call you, we'll call you. We'll call you whatever name you want, we'll call you. Of course, massive season for you last year. You know, first, you know, I don't think EastEnders existed the last time you won a league title. Maybe it did. Like, that's how long it was. You know what I mean? Phil Mitchell weren't born officially, but you're Premier League champion. You're about to sign Thiago. That deal looks set to happen in a few weeks. 25 million pounds. Is that enough to retain your title, especially with, I mean, the likes of Thiago today talking about Lionel Messi, the City. Do you think just Thiago is going to be enough to retain your title? What are you saying? We'll go to Dot first on it.
So I think you're jumping the gun with the Thiago. I'm not sure if it's that close yet. It may happen later on in the line. But yeah, I think we're poised to retain, you know, our championship. I think when I look at our squad, I look at the first 11, and if you can get that first 11 playing 90% of the league games, I don't see Man City getting close to Liverpool this season, in my honest opinion.
I mean, by the way,
is that even with Messi? Is that even with Messi potentially?
Again, you can't. It's a difficult one because Messi is 33. He's the best player I've ever watched, you know, play football. But again, Liverpool can only take care of their own business. And if Liverpool hit that 100-point mark, it doesn't really matter what Man City do. So, they may have Messi, but it's still going to be, can they defend?
Jamie Vardy's 33 as well, by the way.
Yeah, I'm saying that.
No, but Jamie Vardy started late. You know, when you look at Messi, there's a lot of tread on the tire. Like, he's been playing since he's 17. You know, he's had a 16-year career. So, but to be honest, when I look at Liverpool, I agree with Dot. I think we're still head and shoulders above the rest of the league. And, you know, Manchester City's recruitment so far has left a lot to be desired. I mean, I was expecting them to, you know, splash the cash after, you know, being embarrassed in the league. They only had the Carabao Cup to show for their efforts, and they've only signed, Nathan Ake and Ferran Torres. That's a bit underwhelming, in my opinion. That adds to the squad. It doesn't improve or enhance the squad. And when we're talking about Nathan Ake, is he a top defender? I'm not sure. I'm yet to be convinced. You know, I think he adds to the muchness in that team.
What do you think they're going to implement Ake in the left back position? Because I saw something earlier about 2 left-footed centre backs. Is that going to work? Who's going to play on the left side? Who's going to play on the right side? So do you think he may be brought in as a left back option?
I don't know. Maybe they might play 3 centre backs and maybe, you know, put a Mendy left wing back. But I think when you look at that squad, it needs a lot more than Nathan Ake. For me, they're yet to replace a Vincent Kompany. They need that towering presence at the back. And I think, obviously, Kalidou Koulibaly, he's been mentioned in some patches that he might be signing for the club. I think it's going to take that sort of signing to make me think, you know what, City are on course to, you know, close the gap.
I hear that. And do you know what's interesting what you say there? There's a few things to unpick. Firstly, around jumping the gun with Thiago. I've got to do that. I'm a clickbaiter, so I jump the gun. I've got to do that. I'm embracing it now. That's what I think I am. I'm going to, you know, like if you're a girl and she accuses you of cheating all the time, you know, I might as well reap the rewards. You know what I mean? Not that I do that. That is not me. You know what I'm saying? But you might as well say it. So I'm going to embrace it. Like, yeah, that's what I am. I think City thing's interesting though, because a lot of attention on United because we've signed nobody, and it's in every newspaper, every journalist. I know City have signed a couple of, for me, bench players, or as you say, cannon fodder. They're just there to make up some numbers. City haven't signed anybody, and it's gone so under the radar. Like, literally, it's gone so under the radar. That's a bigger shock. I mean, you know, they might still end up bringing in 3 or 4 big stars as an example. But I make Liverpool favourites. If and when you bring in Thiago, for me, I don't think Messi, he's going to make them closer to you. But I just think Liverpool bringing in Thiago is a masterstroke, because I felt Liverpool were being found out a bit towards the end of the season. 4-4, when we were 4-4-2-2 against you, I feel they were nullifying the fullback slightly, and it was making it hard. And this is why, Jurgen Klopp is a mastermind, and he's a brilliant manager and a brilliant coach. Is well, I need to then bring somebody in that can make us more expansive through the central areas. So it may mean that you play differently at large times next season, which means your fullbacks are not your main creative outlet. You may go more centrally, but that's a sign of a brilliant manager. You can't keep playing the same way with the same personnel. It has to be changed as and when people kind of find you out, but still keeping the same ethos there. And I think he instantly becomes the best midfielder at Liverpool and one of the best in the Premier League when he comes in. The one thing I did want to pull on there, and it brings us onto the expectation levels nicely. You think you're going to get near 100 points again next season, Liverpool?
Yeah, I always tell Dej, like, to win this title, you need 100 points. So I'm expecting 100 points, because I think Man City are going to come back stronger. I don't think they're going to lose as many games. I think they're going to be much more consistent than what they were this season. And I think Liverpool, we spoke to Ryan Brewster on the Beautiful Game podcast, and he said the boys, they're not happy. Yeah, they won the title. Excellent achievement. 99 points. Wow, record-breaking season. But deep down, they want that 100 mark, and they're going to be going to smash it next season.
To be fair, when I look at the points margin, I'm not sure both teams will reach that 100 points. When we look at the impact that COVID has had, there's less preparation. So I think there's going to be a lot more unexpected results, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, the end of the season was weird. There were elements of it I loved. I obviously didn't like not having fans there, but it was really hard to judge whether teams got better or worse. Did they get better because of fans? Like Liverpool lost quite a few games. They're already champions. Were they really trying? There's also that notion that if you play relaxed, you should win more, because Southampton had a brilliant kind of period. So there's so many questions to kind of be answered. Will Liverpool be able to? They might say it, and of course they're going to go out and say we'll work harder. We're going to fight even more than we did last year. But maybe a switch goes off that says, "Oh, we've done it." And I felt last year with City that there's 2 years back to back of being out of this world. I felt as you guys opened up like a 9-point gap, I almost feel like subconsciously they just switched off and they just weren't quite at the races from that point. And I always think about Conor McGregor. He said in an interview once that when he's losing a fight, the reason that he quits and gets himself out of there, he doesn't see any point of taking a further beating. And it makes sense. I could go another 2 rounds and get my head caved in, but then that's more damaging for my career than just getting out of there, recouping. And I'm like, it's logical. Like people call it quitting. He says it's just saving himself for another day. And I feel like City maybe tried to do that. They knew they couldn't catch you. Let's save ourselves, but they need more players. It's going to be such an interesting season. Do you think any rivals, do you think any rivals can catch Liverpool? So second half of the season, last 18 games or so, Man United were the best team in the league by 5 points. Like mathematical fact. Do you think that anyone like United
did they win the second half of the table award or something? Did they?
Pretty much.
What they got did they get a trophy for that? Or?
No, we don't ask for trophies. You guys were the ones asking for trophies.
No, Terry, to be real, like it goes back to what you were saying. Like there's a boxing quote. You can't go on your morning run in your silk pajamas. And I think that's what happened to Manchester City. I think they're full up. They lack the ambition, domestically. And obviously what you were asking, is there going to be any rivals this coming season? I can't see it. Like most of these teams are still in their transition phase. Arteta still needs to mold the squad in his own image. Lampard's bought a few players. Tottenham, they've recruited well. Obviously, you're going to sign Matt Doherty today. They've got Højbjerg as well. So I think Liverpool are at that maturation stage where it's about winning titles, and I can't see no one catching up, to be honest.
Yeah, but to be honest, I think we need to shed a spotlight onto Frank Lampard, because when Liverpool had that big spend in summer, it was now Jurgen Klopp needs to take these teams from a nerdy team into winners. Frank Lampard is spending tons of money here, so there's going to be pressure. And if Roman Abramovich doesn't think that he's the man to lead them to their title, he's going to act very quickly.
Yeah, Frank Lampard is he's a world record holder. In his first 12 months in charge of his club, it's now £322 million has been spent on new players for his squad. Now, not 2 of them weren't instructed by him, but they're still new players for his squad that he's had the benefits from. £322 million has been spent on his squad since he's been there. That's outrageously high. And there's still people that are Premier League title winners. So that it isn't like they were adding to, look at Man United, 7-8 years in the doldrums, like 7-8 years with Phil Jones. Like, if you spend and wasting money, this is a team that only a few years ago were Premier League champions. So they're adding to quality. They've got a manager that understands a club. They've spent big. They've addressed nearly every single position. For me, a lot of pressure does need to be put on Frank Lampard and his team. And by the way, the same as United, if we do land Sancho and we land Grealish and Van der Beek, and I'm just throwing 2 additional names out there as examples, I will put the same pressure on us, because then you start looking at our team and you go, well, we've now got a bench and a first team. And I mentioned the second season as an important element, because for me, we saw a check. I would ask Liverpool fans, how long have you been at this brilliant best? And I would say it's 2.5 years. Since the Van Dijk signing in that January, that second half of the season, you clicked into gear. Now, what I want to see is Man United do the same as Liverpool, in the sense of we had a good second half of the season, but we still need more. And I want us to have our summer where we sign our Fabinhos and our Allisons and we strengthen that squad out. And then I expect to go on and be as consistent as we were at the back end of the season for the whole campaign. If we don't, then I'll be picking the bones out of my club. And that's one thing I pride myself on here at the Football Terrace. I won't put standards against other people's clubs that I won't put against my own, which by the way, most people do. They will be like, oh, well, you know what I mean? So I feel like Lampard needs that pressure because he's got his players. Liverpool need the pressure. None of this underdog talk anymore like Klopp's been doing. Liverpool, for me, have to be favourites and held to account if they don't get over the line. Same with City. City can't be losing 9 games. Can't lose 9 games in the season.
100%.
Madness. They can't be. And I look at City and Man United, any more than 5 defeats next year, if we sign who we want and they've got who they want, for me, you start moving into the realms of failure. And I'll hold all those clubs to account, in my opinion, because we've got to be better. If you want to dine at the elite table, you've got to have the standards to go with it. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, I think
so, Terry,
super frank. You go on, Butch.
I was going to ask you, Terry, in your opinion, where do you feel that United need to strengthen? So I know you just reeled off a few names there. Are those in the areas that you feel are key for improvement and development, or are there other pressing areas?
Yes, they're key. I think you could throw left back into that. So, I mean, a really good summer for me. Jadon Sancho is number 1 priority. We haven't had a good, a quality, actually. We've had good. We haven't had a top quality right side of the attacker since Ronaldo. That was 11 years ago he left Man United. It's a madness to think. And we've signed good names, but no one's done a good job. So that's priority. Then I want more. Then we need to replace the Pereiras, Matters, Lingards, and I want to go for it. I want a Jack Grealish type player or a Van der Beek that can do the attacking roles or the central midfield areas. So one of those two would be great if you get both. Amazing. Very much doubt it. Although Van der Beek's supposedly available for £40 million. It's like, get the guy done. I'd love a holding. I'd love a Thomas Partey or an Ndidi, someone of that ilk as well.
Declan Rice?
I like Declan Rice. I'm not one of these weird Premier League fans who seems to hate on the English players. Some have this real issue with English players, and every English player is trash and crap and overrated. I'm like, Declan Rice is a baller, bruv. Like, you just don't like him. Proper
baller.
He's a proper football player, and I think he's got a good character as well. So I think you need those types of characters in the dressing room. So someone like him would be great. At the back, I'd love a partner for Maguire who's better than Lindelof and Bailly. I don't know how plausible that is. But left back probably more pressing. So if
Terry, how highly do you rate Maguire? Because for me, he doesn't dine at the top 2 tiers of centre backs, in my opinion. I think if he's your number 1, if he's your type A centre back, you've got a ceiling on what you can achieve. And I think Maguire, I'm yet to be convinced. What's your view on
it? Ted, what's your top tier? So you got tier 1.
Yeah,
then
well, I want to know who's on first.
So tier 1 would be a Van Dijk. He's head and shoulder. He's ruling the roost. Then when you get So then when you get into the tier 2s, you've got I like Milan Skriniar from Inter Milan. I think he's a top centre back. And you've got the likes of Laporte. Although to be fair, my views of him are going down and down and down. Since he had that nasty knee injury, I don't think he's been the same man. So then after that, I'll put your Harry Maguires. So tier 3, tier 4.
Yeah, see, I look at him as I put Maguire into that tier 2 category. I use a thing, brilliant. You guys should use it. It's a little expensive, but it's well worth getting for what you do in terms of research. It's called Y Scout, and so it has all the stats for players. So it will have every stat around aerial duels, defensive one-on-ones, mistakes, everything. But then you have a video clip of every single one. So when it's not like a YouTube clip. So I can watch. So what I did, I sat around. I'm a bit anal with this sort of stuff, and I wish that I had the licenses to be able to show people this. So I looked at Koulibaly this season. I did look at Upamecano because he's young, and I looked at Maguire, and I looked at sort of one-on-one defending. I looked at what they call losses. So he's passing of the ball around the back end of the pitch to see how things worked out, etc. And those boys made more mistakes, gave the ball away in more areas, lost more one-on-one defending, had more errors, made more mistakes, more comedic mistakes than Maguire did. People talk about Maguire being dribbled past. He gets turned too easily. He got dribbled past 17 times this year. So yes, Van Dijk was brilliant, only 7 times. However, Lindelof only got turned and dribbled past 4, so you've got to put that in perspective. But
Terry, sometimes you got to judge it on the eye test. Obviously, I appreciate that.
That's what I was going to get to. So Koulibaly got dribbled past 23 times. The eye test is important, but the eye test again it's like listening to music, or it's like a girl you look at. Maguire struggles for me because he looks so awkward and slow and just like when he looks rubbish doing it. And because he looks rubbish, I don't think people appreciate it so much. Where if he looks beautiful doing it, like when I watch Van Dijk, it looks like he's ice skating when he moves around. It looks great, but in terms of the output, I mean, is Maguire making more mistakes than his contemporaries? No. Is he winning, his duels and his challenges to equal or higher measures? Absolutely. And then when you watch the video evidence to go alongside it, you realize, do you know what? He's rushed in on 3 or 4 of those challenges and been turned. But he's not doing it disproportionately more than everybody else that you put into tier 2. So my view is, if they're outstanding, if they're that much better than him, how are they making more mistakes? And that's my view. So that's how I kind of look at it. I think he's a tier 2 player. Will he get anywhere near Van Dijk's level? No, not in my opinion.
So you're happy him being your main centre back. So anyone that comes in partners. Because for me, I think obviously Eric Bailly has been a bit unfortunate with injuries, but when he was signed from Villarreal, I would say Eric Bailly is a better centre back than Maguire. That's my opinion. I think Eric Bailly, all things being equal, is a better centre back than Maguire.
I think he could have been, and but that's the same with any kind of injury. You young men may not remember when Anderson joined Manchester United in 2007. This boy's first season in the Premier League, he was there as the replacement for Paul Scholes. He scored in his first season. Second season did well. Ruptured his right knee. Came back 18 months of getting back to full fitness. He probably ate too many crisps. He put a bit of weight on. He ruptured the ligament in his left knee. And that was kind of it for him, if that made sense. We had Wes Brown at Man United, who was tipped to go on and be a star. 2 or 3 major knee injuries when he was younger. Bailly, like a lot of those players who, how good would Jack Wilshere have been if his body was like a biscuit? He would have been 100%. Baller. And I put Bailly into that situation, and it's unfortunate. I always, again, use boxing analogies. If Amir Khan had a chin, he'd be the world best. He'd be the world best boxer, wouldn't he?
100%. No one's got faster hands than Amir Khan.
Honestly, it's easier to slide up on his chin than it is his wife's DMs. Do you know what I mean? Like AJ. It's true. I think that's the thing for me. So what I would like, I was a bit gutted we didn't go in for this Gabriel. However, I now look at it and think if we could land someone like Upamecano next year, next to Maguire, I could stomach not getting a centre back this year if it meant we got someone like him next year, because it isn't about winning the race. It's sort of slow and steady. I would like someone like Tagliafico or Telles at left back, because I don't think Luke Shaw's good enough. If you could throw in a Van der Beek or a Thomas Partey to the midfield area and then bring in Sancho, just those 3, plus the kind of the bringing through of a couple more academy players, I think that's enough for Man United to move ourselves into a position where we can cement a top 4 position and qualify with relative ease in comparison to this year. And then one more good summer in the market going into the 21-22 season, and then seriously challenge. I was hoping for a bit of a madness summer where we maybe did a bit of a Chelsea where we signed sort of 4 or 5 top level players. Then I'd be saying, I think we've got to push for a title, because our first team, when you look at Bruno Pogba, look at Rashford, Martial, Gunwood coming through. Do you know what I mean? These boys are sensational players, all of them. And it's, Ollie's got them clicking and working. The problem we had towards the end of that lockdown period is we were wrecked because that bench is so poor. Do you get what I mean? And that's where we need to kind of move forward. But yeah, that's what I want to see us do. And again, my expectations for Man United next year will change depending on who we sign. If we don't bring anybody in, then we're going to struggle to make top 4 just like this year. And I can't see it changing because we don't have a thick enough squad to make it through the season.
Yes,
you know
so Terry,
what,
like, what's
what I
your...
think-
Go on, Bush, go on.
I was just going to say, sorry, Des, just to follow on from what you were just saying there, Terry. I think with United, it's really important that you strike whilst the iron's hot this summer. And one thing that I would say, and also going back to what we were talking about earlier with regard to Chelsea and how much they're investing this summer, this market really is the best possible market for teams with a lot of liquid cash. So like your Chelseas, your Uniteds, your Bayern Munichs that are obviously backed by a lot of cash. Particularly because of the fact that UEFA are relaxing the financial fair play restrictions this year, right?
Yes.
To ease off a little bit with that. So I think that's part of the reason why Chelsea have gone out and spent all that they're spending. Of course, you factor in that they couldn't spend last year, but I think that's really the main reason that they're thinking, right, because FFP is going to be relaxed this year, we might as well go, and instead of having and making signings that are going to only incrementally improve our team, we're going to go and we're going to make those signings that are going to, improve our first 11 considerably.
Yeah.
So United are also in a similar situation in that you've got a lot of liquid cash, and if there's ever a window for you to go out and make a statement and make those signings, it's now, because a lot of clubs will have been affected by COVID and will need the cash, and so a lot of their asking prices for certain players are going to be considerably lower because of that.
Yeah, and I think that's an element that needs to be addressed. And I know my hope is now for the market. If I take my Man United hat off and just speak, I used to work in football finance. The expectation now is that now that Chelsea have landed these deals, you've got the big one with Chilwell and you'll have the big one with Havertz. That should set a marker for Europe, because Liverpool are not looking for a big signing, but haven't signed anybody. City have signed nobody of any real note. Tottenham haven't signed anybody of any real note. Arsenal, I mean, look, Gabriel looks like he's going to be a good signing as an example, but it isn't as though you've gone and brought a signing where everybody's kind of, you've had Willian come in. It's not been a mouth-watering signing.
Yeah.
And I know again, would I have liked a Willian at United as a backup? Probably. Would I have liked a young player like Gabriel or Ake? Maybe. But that isn't going to appease Man United fans. We want to, like, we were linked with David Brooks the other day and everyone's going mental. Now, if we'd already signed Thomas Partey, Sancho and Tagliafico, and then we were linked with Brooks, we'd go, yeah, cool backup player. But it's the order in which these links come out. And a guy sent me something the other day, an old colleague of mine that works in a business department of a newspaper, that there's something happening in the next week or so around Sancho, a new bid. United are just biding their time, more so to try and win internal. You guys have been chatting to footballers and journalists. There's so much poker that goes on. There's so, I want to look. I look at Liverpool in this way. This whole like, oh yeah, we couldn't sign Werner because we couldn't warrant spending that kind of money. It's like no one with a brain believes that, but we want the PR. Like the PR is cool. We'll back the PR. Like you've got the money. You just chose not to spend that much on him, as opposed to saying it's morally wrong. Because if Chelsea didn't come in for him and turn his head and make him want more money, you would have bid what you originally went for. Anyway, you wouldn't have sat on, like, you wouldn't have been talking to him on Skype calls telling him how much you love him and want him if you weren't trying to sign
but
him.
I think it was a morally, correct decision, because obviously Liverpool placed a lot of their staff on furlough. So if you're placing your staff on furlough and going out to splash 50 odd million, I think PR wise, that's our own goal,
I think it was more the other way. I think what's happened is, so what happens is when you become a big team, again, like Liverpool have in terms of current status, not history. You're always going to be gigantic. And this is like anything. If you boys were offered a job next week, right? Let's just say this. I don't know what you boys have done before doing the podcast, but let's just say Joe Rogan, Liverpool, the best team in the world right now. If Joe Rogan, who has probably got the biggest podcast in the world, said, I want you to come and be my co-host, right? Or you want to be involved, you're going to be like, well, what are the other, there are not co-hosts, but they said it was. You'd want to know what the other co-hosts are being paid. And then I want the same. Well, why do you want the same? Well, you're the best in the world and you want me to come and help keep you there. So I want to be compensated to be paid the same. You wouldn't go in there and go, okay, I'll start at the bottom and work my way up, because you guys are telling me to come in, you want me front and center. So if Liverpool come to me now as a player, or if I'm representing a player and they say, we want Werner to be our new lead striker. You're the best in the world. You want him to keep you at the top. Yes. Then you're going to have to pay him what the other top players they were earning. I'm not going to allow him as his agent to go in there on half the salary of your top stars. And then what's happened?
I was told that Werner was happy to join Liverpool and be that rotation player for the first 12 months. He understands that Mane, Salah, Firmino is the best front three in the world, but he just wanted to work with Jurgen Klopp. He sees the project. He knows long term he is going to be a starter at Liverpool. So I think it was morally incorrect for Liverpool to spend that 50 million. They just couldn't make sense of it. It just didn't make sense.
I don't know. I mean, you got to remember, Chelsea were talking to Werner before lockdown even begun, so Chelsea were already involved in the mix. And I always feel this: if he wanted to play for you like Van Dijk and like Naby Keita did, he'd have waited. But he didn't. He literally went, well, I'm not waiting. Because he could have waited a year. I mean, 1 year.
Yeah, but he was thinking, all right, Chelsea, that's a good option. I'll just go there.
I get that. But when you're
the wage packet as well, like when you see the wage packet that was offered by Chelsea, it was, very exorbitant. So it made sense, all right. So that's what he decided to do.
Big money. I think he's being paid what he kind of deserves to get paid. But this is the thing with the PR of it. It's always going to be spun in a particular. Every time Man United don't sign a player, rejected. It's like the Haaland deal was my favourite. United got rejected by Haaland. Well, the guy wanted a £50 million buyout clause and we said no. So I don't really get how that's our rejection. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. You ask a girl out and she's like, yeah, but I want to pay half the bill. And you're like, no, I want to pay for it. You haven't been rejected by her. You just didn't work out.
Terry, as you said, Terry, it's clickbait, no?
Firmino, it was like he rejected Man United, and it's like United didn't even bid for him. Like that didn't even happen. Yeah, but we'll just tell people it did because it makes for Liverpool fans the story's better when you sign a player and United were rejected in the process. It's the way these things go. Do you know what I mean? When you guys sign Thiago, there will be stories that will go back and go, United could have got him in 2013, but Moyes pulled the plug. Why? Because it makes the story sweeter, especially if he balls for you. It's like you should have had him, but we got him, and that's the way these things go, I think. But transfer window's interesting. We all like to see it through like our rose-tinted kind of glass. But for a lot of football players, it's just business. And I worked with a lot of football players in my previous job, and they didn't call training. They didn't call football matches. They said work, especially the European players. It was like, so Daley Blin was one of my clients, and I remember needing to see him about something. And he's like, yeah, I get home from work at like 3 PM. I'll give you an hour because I have to sleep because then I go back to work in the evening for another session. And I'm like, work? And they took me, he means training. I'd call it training, but he calls it. So I think the British players call it training because it's cultural, but over there it's work. And they really push this differential between like training and playing a game is playing. This is business. And I like that mentality. I was like, that's good mentality. That's why my YouTube now, I call it work. That way when the kids know I'm like, no, it's work. I'm working. Just say I'm playing around. I'm playing a game. So if you're out there and you're a budding gamer, don't say to your mum and dad, I'm going to stream. So I'm going to work now. I'm going to do my job. It's got more of a professional feel to it. It sounds better. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. Where do you boys? Yeah. So in terms of Arsenal for a minute, because Arsenal fans are in this weird space at the minute. They're buzzing. They're excited. They won the FA Cup, but you nearly finished 10th, right? You genuinely nearly finished 10th in the league. How do you see it going next year? Like, do you think you're going to make top 4? Do you think there might be a struggle? What's your expectations for Arsenal next season?
To be fair, I think a lot of Arsenal fans are optimistic. Of course, we've been through it all this last sort of 18 months or so, and I think a lot of fans are optimistic because of the fact that Arteta's come in and he seems like he has a very clear idea of exactly what he wants, what he expects from his players, his philosophy. And that gives us a lot of confidence, particularly when it comes to not only the team going forward in terms of on the field, but also off the field in terms of how the team are preparing and recruitment. So obviously, the news came out recently about Raul Sanllehi leaving the club and the fact that now Edu and Mikel Arteta were going to be working closely in terms of the recruitment. I think because we see he has this clear idea of what he wants from his team, it gives you that peace of mind. Like, okay, at least we know that if he's going to have some say in the signings, that the profile of those players are going to be exactly what he wants to fit his system and how he wants to play. And we've seen that with the right personnel, he can do a job. He managed to work with what he had. We saw a turnaround and an upturn in form in terms of obviously winning the FA Cup and also in game management and that kind of thing. So there's definitely some optimism on that front. In terms of expectations, I think I can speak for all Arsenal fans that when I say there isn't really much for next year. I think it is, our highest aspiration is just trying to qualify for Europe in the Champions League. But I think a lot of Arsenal fans would be pleased with just seeing Arteta in his first full season make progress in terms of personnel, in terms of the brand of football, in terms of getting certain players to kick on. Of course, Pepe arrived with a huge expectation with his price tag and flattered to deceive last season. So a lot of Arsenal fans will want him to have a good season. Yeah. We've obviously had Saliba coming in. We've got, hopefully everything gets wrapped up with Gabriel and we can get him in as well. And I think a lot of fans will just want to see these players kick on, settle in, bed in really quickly, and see sort of positive signs and progress on that front. I think anything better than us finishing where we finished is I think a lot of Arsenal fans would take that, to be quite honest.
Yeah, I think that, it's sensible because, you could improve dramatically this year, but if Chelsea and Man United and Tottenham also all improve dramatically, and this is why I keep saying to people, league positions, of course, they count. But when you're in that transition and progression phase, sometimes it's more focusing on the football. So a lot of people tried to put down Ollie's achievements this year by saying the same points as last year. I'm like, if you were seriously going to be disingenuous and drop the banter for a moment, if you're going to be disingenuous and not notice the difference in us as a team from January onwards, with the amount of goals we scored in 24 games, like 14 clean sheets, we broke a record in the Premier League, which I didn't even know existed, like winning 4 games on the bounce by 3 or more goals. If you're not going to recognize any of those improvements in Man United in that time, then we know you're joking. So you can put banners and go, yeah, you obviously did notice. That's why you're bantering it. And I think that's where fans say Arsenal need to be in that regard. Okay, was the football better? The big thing is, can you compete better against the top 6? Because for Arsenal, for about 8-9 years against the top 6, barring the odd result there, it's been trash. And what I like about Arteta, and I've got this little feeling, I don't think he's going to be the new Pep like a lot of people thought. I think you've got more chance of him being a Diego Simeone type manager, especially with Arsenal being a club that spends the gigantic money. And in terms of when people watch Atletico on a more regular basis, they attack and beat up the smaller teams. Of course they do. When they play the bigger players, they become more pragmatic. And when Arsenal did that at the end of the season, I have to say,
results.
It was the most impressive Arsenal football team I've seen since like peak Wenger, and completely adjacent styles. But it was pleasing to watch Arsenal have a chin, have some resilience on a regular basis. Game, Arsenal did it, and it's maybe 7-8 years ago, away at Man City, away from home. You put in this dogmatic performance where you were resilient, and I'm just thinking, they've clicked into gear. And then a week later, it's gone again. I'm like, what happened? Like, trying not to be biased, right? So I just think with Arteta, you can improve, but it doesn't necessarily mean top 4. What I would, as a rival, I want to see the meltdowns. I want to see, I don't like it, Robbie. Like, I just want to see it. However, as a football fan, I just want to see clubs like Arsenal, Man United, and Chelsea give their managers a little bit more time, because I think we're moving back into an era of football now where longer-term plans, club cultures, and philosophies are so imperative. Without them,
100%,
you're not going to be able to compete. And, Liverpool didn't get to this stage in 2.5-3 years with Klopp. This has been growing since SFG got there. It took them time to find their feet. They've built to this. City have reached this point. This is almost City's crescendo. Since they've had the owners in there, it's built up to this point where if Pep would have come in on day 1, year 1, year 2, year 3, they never would have been as successful as they are. It's taken time to build an ethos and a philosophy and a culture. And that's where Arsenal and Man United have gone wrong. It's fallen apart, and we don't know what we want. And it's like people go, you've got to get this amount of points to show improvement. It's all contextual. It depends how good everybody else is. Liverpool next year with 51, with 80 points. Does that mean they're worse than they are this year? Not necessarily. It's one of those really interesting ones for me. It's about how good everybody else is. A bit of luck in games. You've all seen games where you guys must have seen it this season, Liverpool fans, where you're like, I know we won today.
Yeah.
We're lucky, and you could have 5 of them go against you this season, and that could be anything from sort of 6, 7, 8, 9 points or higher dropped. So all these things can happen. I think it's real interesting. What do you boys think from a Liverpool point of view, looking at Arsenal? Do you think that they're going to climb in the league table, get better, or do you think that they're on for another tough ride.
Yeah, looking from outside, obviously, I think the FA Cup win pays over the cracks. I think Arteta, he's shown some signs, but I think if you don't win that FA Cup, people look at it and think, hold on a minute, you finished ninth, you finished in mid-table, despite having a lot of games to close the gap. But what I would say from a longer-term perspective, Arteta can show the players that want to come into the club, listen, I've won an FA Cup with players that aren't my own. So imagine what I can do with my own players. And apparently he was central to the talks with, Willian and Gabriel Magalhaes. Apparently Magalhaes turned down Ole Gunnar Solskjaer because he wasn't impressed. But it seems that, Arteta's got that pulling power to draw people in. So I think from an Arsenal perspective, it's more of a longer term project, 2 or 3 years. But I still think that they need a lot more to, contend with the big boys. That's my opinion.
Well, remember, this is why we've got to be careful, though, because it was this time last year that Arsenal fans and Arsenal journalists were telling us that Pepe turned down Liverpool for Unai Emery's plan. So this is the thing I love. I always love optimism. I absolutely love the optimism when a new player signs, a new manager's in. I just can't wait. But that's why, as a rival now, this is the banter, not the serious analysis. So I want to see it go wrong because I just love seeing the meltdown. The videos on YouTube where it's like, we got him. And it's like, I back this guy. He's my guy, this signing. And it's like, ladies and gentlemen, we got him. And then the music kicks in. Do you know what I mean? Or it's the man carrying the coffin or something. It's like, yeah. As a rival fan. We had a super chat here. It says, do you think Sancho will sign before the 7th? I suppose you mean the 7th of, is that when the window shuts, 7th of October? I'm still 90% sure he's going to be a Man United player. What do you boys think? We'll go to Dot first. Do you think Sancho will be a Man United player this season?
It's a difficult one to say. When I last spoke to his representatives, they said he's happy at Dortmund. He's not going to push for a move. If the deal happens, it happens. If Man United pay the fee, it happens. But he's not going to kick up a fuss at Dortmund. He's not going to put in a transfer request, as I understand. So it's one that may go to the last days of the transfer window, but I'm having the feeling that he might stay now,
Yeah, I get that.
My opinion, I think, again, from speaking to his representatives, they're looking at, listen, okay, you're 20 years of age. In 12 months, there's going to be more clubs pulling their seat to the table. You're probably going to have Liverpool coming because Mane, Firmino and Salah, they're going to be 29. So really and truly, the onus is on Man United to force the action. And from speaking to people from, the Dortmund side of the deal, it's up to Man United. If Manchester United want this deal to happen, it will happen. So everything's on them. But do I think it will happen? Yes. I think Jadon Sancho will be a Manchester United player come next season, or October the 1st, because obviously the season starts in September.
I disagree. I think Jadon Sancho will remain a Dortmund player for the forthcoming season. I think it makes sense for 2 out of the 3 parties involved. For Jadon Sancho, I think he's been on an upward trajectory since joining Dortmund. And in terms of the numbers that he's putting up, in terms of, the way he's playing his football, and I just see him really, really flourishing. And I think another season in the Bundesliga isn't going to do him any harm, particularly because he gets it now. He's an integral part of the team, and Dortmund love him there. Like, he's central to all of the plans. So in terms of his development, I think an extra year doesn't hurt at all. And then looking at it from Dortmund perspective, we've obviously been speaking about the fact that there are so many clubs that have been affected by the virus this year. So in terms of raising the funds to sign him to this year, so Dortmund obviously looking at that like, right, we've got him tied down to a long-term deal, so we're in no rush to sell him. If we were to hold out for another 12 months and allow other potential suitors to come to the table, that drives up the price. It's a win-win for us. So why wouldn't they hold out? And so for that reason, I think, unless, of course, United really do push the envelope, I don't see him leaving. I think he's going to stay.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you all in the sense of, if we bid the money, we get him. I think it's that's clear enough. If we put £108 million bid in now in a way where the money's guaranteed or isn't spread over it. I listened to Fabrizio and he was saying how they don't want it over a 4 or 5 year period. There was no kind of talk of, well, what about a 2 year period then? Like, I think there's a way of getting it done in a shorter period of time. And I think that's where Man United fans are frustrated because, listen, I'm happy to put into a GoFundMe. If we're like 25 million, I'm serious. Right now, if Man United said, look, we need him, but we need a GoFundMe. If every Man United fan in the world put 20p in, we'd raise more than enough. Do you get what I mean? It's like we've got the money, let's pay it in. And that's what's frustrating me about clubs losing money through match day revenue. I'm like, why don't they just get fans to donate some cash? I'm sure fans will. I would.
100% fans would do that.
I'll throw a bit of money in there. Do you know what I mean? From an Arsenal point of view, Robbie could donate a yacht or something. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's stuff to be done out here. Like, we can help our club. That's what we're here for. And I feel like, yeah, I just want him to. I want him to. If we miss out on him because we were too afraid to put the money up, and then next summer Liverpool come in and they get him for 110, 112, whatever. If he has another massive season again, the money's going to go up further. And it's almost that case of, I don't want to see that happen. It will be a very, very bitter pill to swallow. And, you know, we missed out before on Ronaldinho to Man United because we weren't prepared to bid an extra 5 million. Now, we got away with that because the following summer we signed Cristiano Ronaldo, or maybe the same summer, it was one of the two. So it got forgotten because we had Cristiano Ronaldo at the football club. Unless we pull out, if we don't get Sancho, unless we pull out another Sancho, unless we pull somebody else out and into the mix.
Yeah, so Terry, like, if you don't get Sancho, worst case scenario, would you take like a Douglas Costa? Would you take like Kingsley Coleman, or would that soften the blow? Jack Grealish, or is it Sancho for you or nothing?
So look, I think we need more quality. Those players you all mentioned are better than what we already have, but it would feel like going from Beyonce to Jodie Marsh. That's how I feel about it. Like, it would have that sort of, we really had, and we ended up with that saggy woman who looks like leather. Do you know what I mean? No disrespect, Jodie. I'm just like, that's how it would feel. Do you know what I mean? Oh, we're going gourmet, bro. No, we're going Wimpy, bro. Wimpy shut down. 5 years if you're going to go there, and we'll wait. That's kind of how I feel about it. So we have to get it done. If we don't land the marquee signing, the only way you get around it is if the money is then spent properly elsewhere. So if we don't get him and we brought in Thomas Partey, Grealish, Van der Beek, Tagliafico, then I'd be like, okay, I can stomach not getting him because we've really strengthened elsewhere. But if we just don't get him and we end up with Douglas Costa and then we bring in David Brooks, I am tempted. This is not real. This is a joke. In case anyone gets offended, I'm going to burn down Old Trafford. I'm like, burn it down. Like, there you go. That's what I'm not really going to do that. That's what I feel like doing because I just feel like we haven't capitalized on a market where we've got £240 million in cash sitting in our reserves and or part of a lending scheme we've got. Spend it. Buy the money. Because, you know, if we went big this summer, Ollie pretty much got, ladies and gentlemen, stop calling on Skype. I'm not taking Skype calls this evening. Thank you. Ollie's success rate of buying players has been pretty damn good. He bought 2 defenders in, and our defense improved by around 40% across all metrics, double the amount of clean sheets. You know, in the end, the attacking thing clicked when we got Bruno back. But
Terry, I think the problem that Man United fans have is that the transfer strategy is very reactive. It's not a proactive strategy. Bruno Fernandes, why did it take so long? Harry Maguire, you left it to the last weeks of the transfer window to activate the fee.
I don't know. See, on those things, I feel that's more us trying to reestablish our authority in the transfer market. The point being, they were trying to make us pay 65 million pounds up front for Bruno. We ended up getting him for 45 million pounds up front, and then some of it's going to be done in add-ons if we achieve certain things. For me, that's better business. In the Maguire situation, Leicester were holding out. They wanted the cash up front. We were saying no. The only thing that triggered us into doing it is the fact that the current double champions of England and the supposed best manager in the world suddenly came in and said, we want Maguire to replace Vincent Kompany. That puts Man United in a very difficult situation from a negotiating point. If I'm negotiating a contract with someone right now, if it's only me and them negotiating, I have got that situation going on right now with a client, I can dictate what I'm doing. If one of my competitors comes in and says, we'll beat their offer, I now need to either stand my ground and not get him or match what the potential client wants. And that happened twice, and that for me was great business. The way we handled those two deals, we haven't done that prior to that. We'd have yielded at the beginning or whatever. Like, I was happy we tried to establish ourselves, and you don't always, like, Liverpool didn't get what they want with Van Dijk. You wanted him that summer. The only reason you waited is because you broke the damn law in trying to sign him. But at the end of the day, it was like, you guys wouldn't have wanted to pay that, but you ended up doing it. You don't always win. Did you want to break world record fees for Alisson? Probably not. But there comes times where you go, do you know what? We're going to have to now. He's practically sitting on Chelsea's medical table. So
but I think the problem is that how comes all these Man United deals, they're always dragging. When it's Manchester City, you hear it, bang, done. Liverpool, you hear the rumours, bang, done, activated.
Well, hang on. The Thiago deal has been going on now for 7.5 weeks. And you're right, though. Man United's deals feel more protruded because we're the biggest club in the world and we're always spoken about. Every single, think about it, every single journalist, who are they tweeting about the most? 60%. This is a fact. 60%, this in 2018, might have changed, of tweets about Premier League football on Twitter. 60% of them related to Man United. 60% of all football tweets about the Premier League related to Man United in 2018. We drive the news. Without us, newspapers that are already going bankrupt would be even more bankrupt. They'd be gone by now. They'd be finished. So you hear about it more. As an example, there's no story. Like, no one's talking about City not having signed anybody yet. Why? Because
they've made signings.
Yeah, but they're cannon fodder. They're not going to make it. Not going to get the
Terry, the thing with Man United, it always feels like a scattergun approach. With Liverpool, they haven't got the cash in the bank. Man United, as someone mentioned, have 240 million in the bank. But it seems like there's no strategy, just vibes. And that goes to like the bigger question. Do you believe that maybe Ed Woodward needs some help? Does he need like a football strategy? Because Ed Woodward and Matt Judge, I think they need. Yes, sorry, Terry.
No, that's already happened. So Man United, I can't remember which journalist it was, spoke about this in February, March time. It's already happened where Matt Judge and Woodward are not making the footballing decisions anymore. They're doing the financial element, but it's the transfer board, the scouts, and Ollie that are making those decisions. So they've been removed from that already. And I totally get the scattergun approach. Between David Moyes and Ollie, that happened. There's no doubt. And it's there and it's still in the ether. Every signing that Ollie has made, for the degree of player they were, they've been successful in their own right. But it's how things get spun. So, for instance, every Man United fan with a brain cell, with at least 2 brain cells, right, knew that Ighalo was a backup striker, a 4th choice striker that was there to cover positions, right? We all knew this. I've never seen the media get excited over a third. Imagine you sign a 3rd choice goalkeeper. No one's crying about that, right? Like, okay, cool. Yeah, and some of the 3rd choice goalkeepers are dead keepers, like they would never get near your first team, right? That's all Ighalo was. But you had this. That's not an adequate replacement for Lukaku. It's like, how do you think we're that stupid that real football fans think that that's Lukaku's replacement? Yeah, okay, in terms of the number in the squad, in terms of, well, he went out, he came in, you could argue that. But we know that isn't the status of the player. But Martial's been elevated into that position as an example. Greenwood's been elevated into his. And then we've added a 4th choice striker behind it. United's approach under Ollie has been absolutely right from an approach in terms of personnel, but I totally get the scattergun approach. So we got shown some stats the other day that show the average time from the transfer window opening to Man United announcing their first signing. Sometimes it was 20 odd, sometimes 30, sometimes 40 odd days. Everyone's freaking out. I thought, okay, are we all missing the fundamental flaw in these statistics? We need to see everybody else's to see whether we're good or bad. But yet they're not showing us everybody else's. And if we're average 15, 20 days longer than everybody else, then you can factually say we take longer. The difference is you hear about our stories for longer because it creates more news. Like, there's Man United signing someone or selling somebody is bigger news than anybody else. It's why what you see a lot. And
but Terry, like relating back to Liverpool, we saw with obviously we wanted Jamal Lewis. Okay, Norwich on along, bang, we get Tsimikas. With Man United, there doesn't seem to be that succession plan. But
that's because you're going after a backup player, bro. If you were going after someone that's going to come in who is an established first team player in a big team that you're bringing in, like Thiago, it's going to take this amount of time. Thiago talk started before the left back ones. City got their 2 squad players signed easy. Spurs have got like Højbjerg and Doherty done. Like, these things, I don't think they're hard deals to really get done in that regard. There hasn't been, up until Chilwell and then hopefully Kai Havertz, there hasn't been a gigantic deal done yet. Timo Werner don't count because there's the buyout clause. Like, for me, buyout clause deals are not the same because unless you're Arsenal and you bid the £1 thing, do you know what I mean? Like, they're not going to get done. So I think there needs to be a bit more time applied to Man United's transfer strategy. But we're still living in this world where there isn't trust. There isn't trust in the Man United board because we've only been doing better things for a year or so, and it's almost this element of it doesn't feel right. Plus, we get our rivals like yourselves, rightfully so, throwing that salt out there, trying to get it into the wound. The wounds ain't healed yet. I'm Man United fans, and like, we're in trouble again. And I had a little wobble on Tuesday where I'm like, I'm gonna sign no one. I'm getting angry, and then it took me a day to calm down. I was like, just relax and wait until. I was talking to KJ, one of the regulars on our show, and he's like, I'm just gonna wait till the end because we could all be getting on a mad one. And some of the deals that are taking a long time might not even be our fault. Like, we don't know. And it's one of those things. Let's see what everyone else does. I'm relaxed about it. But we need to sign players. And if we don't bring anybody in, then, of course, would I like a director of football? Back to your other question. Yes. Like 110%, I would like a director of football.
So who do you think suitable out there? What, Edwin van der Sar, Mark Overmars? Which sort of person would you like? Rio Ferdinand?
I've heard that it's not going to be that sort of like transfer guru. It'll be someone that's more helping the, logistics of the club. It's not going to be someone that's a massive figure.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, those names excite me because of who they are. Example, you have them there, but then I wouldn't mind someone like I remember I've fallen out with some guys like Rio hasn't got the credentials. I'm like, bro, you do realize this guy is a pro footballer. I think he can relate on a level to players. He owns multiple successful businesses. Like, people forget that Rio, like clothing brand, publications, restaurants. People chat about like he's some footballer from Southeast.
Terry, you know what's funny? When he came onto our podcast, the Beautiful Game podcast, he was like, sign this player, that player. And if you saw the comments, the Man United fans were like, make Rio the director of football today because he can relate.
Exactly. And also, people have got to understand, like, if people saw me in a professional meeting, I'm not the same guy that's on YouTube swearing.
This is it. 100%. People forget. Yeah.
You know what I mean? If Edwin van der Sar was a football pundit, right, that worked in a particular field, you think he would push out the same persona? Did you think? You know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy. Like, people have got to understand that people can have a professional head, they can have a fun head, they can have a banter head, and you've got to learn that those things can all coexist at the same time. Do you get what I mean? Like, when I'm out with my boys, I behave very differently than I'm out with a woman by myself. Like, it's a very different behavior. When I'm out with the boys, I'm having it large. When I'm out with a woman, I'm like, who's looking at her?
Behave accordingly.
I'm not that paranoid sometimes. It's how tight the dress is, you know what I mean? I'm like, but no, I'm only messing. I love that sort of stuff. But that's how it is. And I think that someone like Rio, I think would personally be great. You also need someone that's not scared to tell the owners of the club, who, by the way, are a hindrance. There's no doubt that the owners are a hindrance to Man United. But the one reason I still think the Jadon Sancho deal can happen is there's so many echoes. You know, the statement happened about a week ago. Joel Glazer's putting a stop to it. Doesn't think the player's worth it. Almost the exact same words were published about a week and a half before the Bruno deal went through. And I just don't take any.
Terry, this is my problem. What it seems like a mess. Joel Glazer comes out and says this, and then you're playing mind games with this. Why isn't it just keep silent? And when the deal's ready to get done, bang, trigger that 120 million euro fee.
I don't really think we're saying too much. I genuinely think 85-90% of what we read is just made up. And I just think it is. So when I used to work with football players, I worked in private banking. The amount of times I saw their salaries published, and I'm sitting there going, they're not on that much. They're literally quadrupling it. There were some that were on a lot more. I remember seeing Zlatan's was the big one. It was in football leaks, whatever it was called, 490 grand a week. I remember laughing. One of our clients, I was like, we know exactly how much he earns because, one, we see the money come in, and two, we see the contracts because we have to, for the extreme level that we have to do what they call enhanced due diligence on client, any kind of that kind of money coming into a bank. So we see this stuff. So if the media are going to lie about how much somebody's earning, I don't trust half these stories, but I don't blame them. They're playing the game, and they also print stories that are going to trigger people. It's very easy for the media now. What are Man United fans sensitive about? Our transfer dealings terrible. So what do they write stories about? How bad our transfer dealings are. Then you man as our rivals wind us up and give it, and then everyone's freaking out, like, you know what I mean? Like AFTV style, Robbie! Everyone goes mad. And then the media sits back going, this is great. And they do it on every subject matter. You know, you think now that it's, you know, I saw something that Kevin Hart put out today being like, because I think they used Kevin Hart's picture for an article about Usain Bolt. That was on NBC. You know, when you see these things, do you really think they've made the mistake, or do you think they're doing it because it creates traction? When you click on that website, they still get paid for AdSense. It's money. It's all money. If you print, honestly, every time Arsenal fans, like when Chelsea fans are angry with Kepa, within 2 or 3 days, they're linked with a goalkeeper. It just happens. or it's how these things work, and I love it. I absolutely love it. I used to hate it and attack the media for it. Now I'm like, keep doing it. I love seeing morons freak out based on
It's clickbait. It's clickbait, isn't it? That's it.
Exactly, and it's how it is. If you write an article and you've got a layer of credibility about a subject matter that people hate, it's going to get traction. You've just thrown a massive can of petrol over a bonfire. And I now look at those journalists and I'm like, I respect you so much. You got like 20 million people on strings. That's power. You're making them dance, bro. It's crazy. Pied Piper, but there we go. There we go. But yeah,
but Terry, we have to caveat that because there are very good journalists out there that are very well informed and giving the best news at the best possible time.
And do you know what with that? And of course there are some that are definitely in that kind of ilk and in that space. And, you know, you guys had Fabrizio one as an example. We had Jan Furtov on the other day. You've got Jamie Jackson, I think is a brilliant guy, Henry Winter. But watch their article. Nothing they do is ever to infuriate people. It's presented in such a classy manner. You can tell it isn't sort of headlined. I remember reading a headline once. This one was the best. Jose says, my life in Manchester is a disaster. And I read through the article and I'm like, oh my God, what's wrong? Didn't say that. He said that he loves where he is, loves everything about being in Manchester, just doesn't like the media and paparazzi following him to restaurants. He said that's a bit of a disaster. And I'm like, so that headline, it was done for one reason, to trigger United fans that hated the fact that he didn't want to buy a house in Manchester, because that was annoying United fans at the time. Like, why won't you buy a house? Why won't you commit to us? So they interviewed him about it. And they took the line of it was a disaster that the media chased him around. And they said, my life in Manchester is a disaster. No United fan read the article. They just went after, what do you mean? It's a disaster. What's wrong with our city? It's like that for me is where you go, we can cause a little storm here. And I've seen...
Yeah, that's the editors, because it's funny. I'm close friends with a journalist and we're having this same discussion. He was saying he wrote an article, then the headline was totally different. And obviously people started coming at him from left, right and center, slamming him. Why did you say that? But he didn't write that. It was the editor. But obviously, if he goes to the editor, it creates like an in-war. So he won't do that. But yeah, that's what people do to drive the traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't blame it. I used to get annoyed by it. And now I realize, you know what? It's part of the... If you can't see through it, if you can't read the article, watch the interview, listen to what's actually said, that's on you. You're the dummy. It's not that down to the media. It's your job to inform yourself in life. It's your job to read books. It's your job to learn your history. Because as we all know, from schooling right across, we're only told a certain amount of things. You're quite uninformed until you start to educate yourself. And I think the same is within football. And my eyes opened when I was doing the job that I did, because I just saw things that just simply, certain players. Ashley Cole's a prime example. Ashley Cole's a football player that my whole life I was led to believe was an arsehole because of what I read. And then I met the guy at a few events, and I've never met a sweeter, kinder, more humble man in my life. And I'm like, how did that guy be perceived as that guy? It made no sense to me. Does that make sense? Like, I've been lied to. That was, again, one of those little moments where I was like, I'm going to stop reading. It's a bit like the Harry Maguire thing going on right now. Like, I sort of look at it and I'm sort of like, there's these journalists out there, and I'm going to use Piers Morgan as an example. This man faked like those photographs against the army. This guy literally chased a princess back to America. Right, and he's got the moral high ground when man's sister was stabbed in the arm with something and he beat up a couple of men on a holiday. Sort of sitting there thinking, what world do you people live on? Like, if someone stuck something in my brother or sister's arm on a night out, I don't care. I'm going to defend them. And if I get a criminal record for it, so be it. Like, he's Terry, he's a criminal now. Yeah, defending his sister. Who cares? But like people like always trying to take the moral high ground or twisty stories into something that they're not. Again, it's just like, I don't mind that, but people are going, it's terrible what Maguire did, isn't it? What, defended his sister? Stopped his sister from being kidnapped. That's horrible, is it? Can you imagine thinking that stopping your sister from being kidnapped or date raped is a bad thing? Mad, in my opinion. But there we go. When's your next podcast, boys? When's your next podcast?
The next podcast should be released on Monday. Obviously, we're going to be releasing some dribs in the coming days. So, yeah, you can subscribe on the Beautiful Game podcast on YouTube.
You can say who it is as well.
Yeah, it's Christian. It's Christian Folk. I think everyone knows. So there's a lot of gems on there. There's an update on Jadon Sancho, Kai Havertz, a lot more gems. Lionel Messi was discussed. Yeah, Thiago. So, yeah, that's when our next podcast will be. Monday.
There we go. So people, make sure you go and check it out. The Beautiful Game podcast. Just type in Beautiful Game podcast. It will come up on YouTube. It's proper simple. Make sure you go and do it. We've got literally like 1,400 people tuning in now. All go over there and subscribe. It's amazing content. You know what we're about on this channel. It's all about helping all types of YouTubers in the football space. I don't really care about gamers and them, man. I don't. I'm not tutorials, anything like that. I'm not about that life. I don't watch YouTube for anything other than football. But make sure you go and subscribe to the boys. Gents, I really appreciate you all coming on. Having
Thank
I
you,
like the
Terry.
challenge as well.
Thank you, Terry.
Too many people come on here and just let me talk and don't challenge me on anything, and it annoys me. I prefer to be challenged. So there we go, boys. Take care of yourselves. Everyone,
No, pleasure, Terry. Thank you. Keep
Love
up the
Terry.
great work.
Yeah,
cheers,
he's got a great platform. I'm going to be supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah, great analysis.
Top tier analysis. I love that.
appreciate that, boys. Listen, everyone who tuned in, take care. Goodbye. God bless. See you all again soon.